and challenges. The spread of the novel coronavirus pandemic across the world is creating fear exponentially. But the health risks are not the only bane that comes from this catastrophic event. It has been noticed that this period of social distancing
Sabi,
and
wait a minute.
misinformation.
Sir is not able to hear you. Wait a minute. It's a connection issue. Okay. Now proceed.
It has been noticed that this period of social distancing and misinformation has also given us an opportunity to the dark elements of the society. A recent analysis by global VPN service provider NordVPN, India ranked 19th out of 21 nations in the national privacy test. Out of the 4 lakh complaints lodged on the Ministry of Home Affairs National Cybercrime Reporting Portal, half are related to financial frauds. To prevent crimes and speed up investigations, the central government has made efforts to raise awareness about cybercrime, alerts, improve cyber forensics, and etc. Today, we are here to learn about the existing legal structures which are present for preventing cybercrime in India and to evaluate the existing legal framework and envisage legal reforms which can be adopted to enhance the cybercrime structure from a draftsman's perspective. Mr. Sujit Kumar, a member of parliament representing the state of Odisha in the Rajya Sabha. Prior to this, he served in the capacity of senior policy planning positions with the government of Odisha as the advisor in the rank of Chief Secretary to the Special Development Council of the Government of Odisha and Special Secretary of the Odisha State Planning Board. He is a trained engineer, lawyer, and a policymaker. He completed his Bachelor of Engineering from Veer Surendra Sai University of Technology and Bachelor of Laws from Sambalpur University. He started his career as a software engineer with Infosys Technologies Limited. Later, he shifted to the development sector and worked with the United Nations Development Programme, managing its ICT for Development project in Odisha, working to bring digital technology to the remote regions of the state. After completing his MBA from Said Business School, Oxford University, he joined the World Economic Forum as a Global Leadership Fellow. He left the World Economic Forum to study for a mid-career master in public administration at the Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University. He relocated to India in 2011 and founded a social enterprise, Kalinga Kusum Foundation, and a legal consulting firm, Lex Mantra LLP. Currently, he serves as an advisor, mentor in these two entities, providing them with strategic direction and guidance. Mr. Sujit Kumar has unique multidisciplinary experiences in the corporate, government, and development sectors. He received the prestigious Youth Inspiration Award of 2017 for his innovative work as a policymaker, legal entrepreneur, and for his cutting-edge work at the interface of law, technology, development, and public policy. Our theme for this session is evaluating existing legal infrastructures for cyber crimes. And I would now like to pass on the mic to our guest speaker for this afternoon. The floor is all yours, sir.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Charlie, can you play the video at YouTube?
Yes, sir. On it, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can we play that video?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Is it visible, sir? Is it visible to everyone? Hello?
Yes, it's visible.
Yes, it's visible.
Well, the first question of this edition of the show that was asked by member Sujit Kumar from Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. The member saw details of government strategy in terms of the cyber law and if they have taken any steps to make the current legislation more robust.
Well, there are concerns being raised about cybersecurity and privacy, and the government has taken a serious view of it. And of course, this reply has been given by MOS IT Sanjay Dhotre and he says that the national strategy for cybersecurity is being formulated. The Office of National Cybersecurity Coordinator at National Security Council Secretariat is formulating this policy. A task force was constituted by involving representatives from different central government ministries and departments for the formulation of the strategy. Interministerial consultations have been carried out. The strategic document has now been forwarded to Empower Technology Group for consultation. On receipt, the document will be placed before the Cabinet Committee on Security for deliberations and approval. Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology is examining amendment to the Information Technology Act 2000 for strengthening the provisions for cyber security. And joining us on the Question Hour show is Rajya Sabha MP, Mr. Sujit Kumar. Sir, welcome to Rajya Sabha Television and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you've asked a very pertinent question during the first half of the budget session about national cyber security strategy. The government has given a very precise reply. What is your take?
Actually, I was not very satisfied with the reply of the government to the unstarred question that I had asked. As you might know, in September of last year, the government had announced its desire to formulate, or rather to make it public, the national cyber security strategy. It has been 6 months since. We are yet to see the strategy document. Honorable Prime Minister himself stressed on the need to have a strategy document during last year's Independence Day speech. It has been over 6-7 months now. And as we know, cyber security is so important today because of technological advancement, because of economic growth, because of geopolitics, and particularly because of the threat from a hostile nation like China, which is so aggressive in the cyberspace.
So what are the global parallels or what are the lessons that India can pick up from different countries?
See, Harvard University comes out with a National Cyber Power Index, which ranks different nations on the basis of their preparedness on cyber security or cyber ecosystem. India is ranked a very modest 21 out of the 25 nations that it ranks. China is ranked number 2. Of course, US is number 1. So that tells us how much low prepared we are, how much badly prepared we are. And if you recall, last year we read reports of a Chinese company which was harvesting personal data of citizens, of 24 lakh citizens to be precise, which is very scary. There were unconfirmed reports about a North Korean malware, hacking into the ISRO system. So these are all very dangerous and ominous signals. Now, if you talk of global templates, there are quite a few. Israel is one of the foremost nations as far as preparedness is concerned. Singapore, EU, US, they are all doing fairly well. Singapore model, I would like to speak about the Singapore model, which tries to, take the expertise of the private sector in formulating its strategy. And I think we have a very robust private sector technological prowess in India. And I hope that the national cyber security policy also harnesses this private sector expertise in India. US banks severely on the cyber diplomacy, and tries to influence global players through its cyber diplomacy. Similarly, I think India also has a major role to play as far as cyber diplomacy is concerned.
Lastly, sir, any specific demand or any specific suggestion that you'd like to make to the government?
I think the strategy document is fairly robust. I think it's a fairly robust document as far as making the Indian cyberspace secure, safe is concerned. But I would like to see 3 or 4 specific elements in the document. The first would be to ensure that it takes care of cross-border cyber attacks. When I say this, what I mean is that most of the cyber attacks in the future will be state-sponsored. We have threat from North Korea, we have threat from Pakistan, we have threat from China, and then because of this technological Cold War, whether you agree or not, we are in the midst of a technological Cold War between China and the US. US, for instance, has banned many Chinese companies, Huawei being the most prominent. So India should be cognizant of this technological Cold War and this state-sponsored cyber terrorism, number 1. Number 2 is that the document should be aware of the evolving dangers of cyber warfare. Our adversaries are trying to adopt new strategies. So our document should be should be one step ahead of it. We are still banking on the 2013 National Cyber Security Policy document. Of course, we have a document which is imminent, but the National Cyber Security Policy of 2013 was definitely not adequate because of the rapid advancement in technology. So I think the new strategy document should take care of that. And thirdly, as I mentioned, it should also look into public-private partnership models. It's extremely necessary and imperative to involve the private sector and the community and the civil society in the policy document. And finally, I think our policies should not only focus on cyber warfare, but should also look into cyber crime, because cyber crime has a reached dangerous proportion. During the pandemic, there was 500% increase in cyber attacks and cyber crimes. So international cooperation is essential. Capacity building of our enforcement agencies so that they can do better cyber forensics, they can do better cyber investigations. So all these elements should be incorporated in this strategy document.
All right, on that note, Mr. Kumar, thank you so much for joining us.
When's the last time you seriously thought about
Hello. Shravi, please proceed.
Actually, sir will be speaking after 10 minutes, I guess. He has some urgent work to attend to.
Acha, acha. Okay, okay, okay.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Can I speak?
Continue.
Yes, sir. You can
Okay.
start.
Yeah, my sincere apologies for keeping you wait. I had to rush for some urgent political work, so my apologies. Am I audible enough?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Good, good, good. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure interacting with young minds. I think there are students from different semesters, and I think there are a few faculty mentors as well. So I would compliment the KIIT Law School organizers and everyone involved with this event, webinar rather. It's a very, very interesting topic. Let me first make a confession. See, I'm not an expert in this topic per se. Whatever I would be saying today is based on limited research that I have done for my parliamentary work and for some of my legal work. I would have preferred if there were more technical experts, particularly cyber experts today, so we could have heard from them as well regarding the technical perspective. But nevertheless, I'll try to cover some of the areas which the audience, I hope or I think are interested in. Someone has, I was looking at the chat box and someone has mentioned Pratima, please move to the legal aspect. I will definitely do that, Pratima, at least some of the legal aspect which I'm aware of, I'll definitely try to cover. Let me ask, do you know which is the most prepared country in the world for cyber security? Or at least that's the common accepted wisdom. That this particular country has the best cyber experts and has the best cyber security as far as cyber. Yeah. Anyone would like to? Yeah, I mean the obvious names would be USA or probably China or Japan. Germany, some people do say it's Germany or England, but no, actually it's a very small country called Estonia. Not even Israel. No, I was myself surprised when I was doing my research for my parliamentary interventions, and you did go through the video, and I had raised a very pertinent question in Parliament during the budget session regarding cyber security. And when I was doing my research for the word parliamentary work, I was very surprised to learn that it's not Israel or US or China or UK or Australia. It's rather a very small nation called Estonia. So I do not know who came up with the topic for today's webinar, but it's rather interesting because this topic will allow us to explore, and evaluate some of the existing legal structures and framework in our legal system. We will also try to discuss some of the challenges, in the existing structure, and then if time permits, we'll explore, the possible and doable legal reforms which can be adopted to mitigate this threat of cybercrime. I need not mention we all live in digital age. I mean, all of you understand the context in which we are discussing this. Today there is no profession or industry which is untouched by the digitization or the information technology revolution. Crime, as they say, is as old as mankind. But I mean, society keeps evolving, and as society evolves, new forms of crime manifests, and cybercrime is one of the new manifestations, right? So, but as we move from the offline to online, as we move from the the physical space to the digital space, or from the traditional to the cyberspace, this will hopefully become more and more widespread, right? So, so there's no escape. There's no escaping the fact that cybercrime is only going to rise in the future, right? I mean, you have already, I think, Charvi, you have already mentioned some of the statistics. I'll like to add a few more of my own, and again, based on my research, when I was researching for my parliamentary work, I'm told today there are about over 700 other million internet users in the country, almost 400 million users of social network in India. There is a dramatic increase in the reported crimes in the digital sphere. I'm told between 2018 and 2020, about 85% increase in cyber crimes were reported. So between 18 and 20. But just last year, that is 2020, which is the COVID year, there was a 300% increase in reported crimes, cyber crimes over 2019. So you had 85%, so 300%, in just 1 year, vis-a-vis 85% in a span of 2 years. So that's a massive shift. That's a massive shift. That a massive spike that we're seeing in cybercrime. NCRB, which you might have heard of, the National Crimes Record Bureau, has as per NCRB data, there is almost a 12% increase, in 2020 over 2019. Now, mark you, I just said that there is a 300% increase in cybercrime in 2020 over 2019, but the NCRB data shows only 12%, right? So you see the gap, the massive gap. So most of the cyber crimes go unreported. Lack of and hence are not reflected in the NCRB data, right? And there are many reasons for this. A, because of lack of awareness. B, because of lack of adequate structures in the country, where to report, who to report, what is the format. Most people are not even aware that they have become a victim until it's too late, so on and so forth. So you see the gravity of the problem, right? In fact, Interpol has now a specialized unit to report on, or to work with countries on the potential threat to the hospital and the medical infrastructure worldwide. And India is, of course, a key target for this. So we are literally sitting on the cyber time bomb. We're literally sitting on the cyber time bomb. Now, let me, before getting into the topic in detail, let me tell you, there is a maxim in crime prevention, and the maxim states that what deters crime in a society is not the quantum of punishment, but rather the certainty of punishment. So let me repeat it. What deters crime in a society is not the quantum of punishment, rather the certainty of punishment. So if you recall, the former Deputy Prime Minister L.K. Advani at one point had said that there should be death penalty for rape accused. That is certainly not going to, in my view, not going to deter rapists or potential rapists, because the conviction rate for rapists is 4%. But if we give only 5 years rigorous imprisonment to rapists, with almost 95% or even 100% certainty that if anyone rapes, then that person is going to be convicted, then I think that will have a much larger impact in bringing down rape cases in the country than giving death penalty to rapists. So now, when you say cybercrime, it has multiple connotations. It has multiple connotations. It's divided into multiple categories. But most experts agree on a couple of fundamental, is that it is to commit any criminal activity, and of course mens rea is essential. As students of law, you know that there is no crime without mens rea, and there has to be some IT unit involved, whether it's a laptop, computer, mobile phone, or any digital device, right? Now, the digital device, whether a computer, laptop, it could be a victim or it could be a weapon. Okay, so when the computer is used as a weapon, you have crimes like cyber terrorism, cyber pornography, IPR violations, credit card frauds, etc. And when it is used as a victim, then you hear of crimes such as phishing and hacking, so on and so forth. Now, there's another classification of cybercrime, which is crime against a person, or a crime against property, or crime against the government or society at large. When we say crime against person, it would be pornography, cyber stalking, harassment, cyber defamation, the usual, crimes against a person that you know about after having read the IPC. Crime against property again would be cyber theft and vandalism and transmitting the virus to someone's network or system, IT system. So this would be crime against property, and then crime against society would be cyber terrorism, child pornography. So which actually impacts a much larger segment of population, or the entire state, or the entire country, or even the entire globe, right? So now, after having laid down this basic introduction to the topic, I'll start with the existing legal infrastructure of frameworks that's prevalent in our country. But mind you, I would like to definitely request you to keep in mind that the space of cyber law doesn't restrict itself to just cybercrime. Cybercrime is just one of the aspects which is dealt by the existing infrastructure. which we call cyber law. So cybercrime is of course the much larger or the largest area of crime addressed by the cyber law field, but you do also have intellectual property law, you do also have data protection, data privacy. So these are other areas which are dealt with by the domain of cyber law, right? Now, all of you are aware that you have the IPC, you have the CRPC, you have the Evidence Act. These are the three, which we call the major criminal acts, right? And then if we look at IPC, you have some of the key sections which have relevance to cybercrime. And because of paucity of time, I'll restrict myself in this webinar to only cybercrime. We will not delve into IP, intellectual property laws, or will not delve into data protection and privacy, though data protection and privacy is a very, very important topic. And as we speak, there is a joint parliamentary committee which is actually looking after data protection and privacy, and they're going to come out with a report which is to be tabled in the winter session due 3 weeks from now. So I think that would be another great topic to have at some other point, and I would urge all of you to look into that, because data privacy and data protection has become extremely important for each of us. Now, coming back to cyber crime and coming back to the Indian Penal Code, you have 378 dealing with theft. You have 426. 426 mischief, you have forgery 469, or defamation 499, or criminal intimidation 4503. These are all some of the provisions of IPC which are which has relevance for crimes in the digital space. Then you have a number of sections of IPC, 192, 204. I'm not getting into the individual sections at this point, right? We know time. 463, 464, 476. These are the sections of IPC which have been amended by inserting the word electronic record. Okay, thereby treating the electronic record and document as part of physical record and document. Okay. So, so these are the basic understanding that I think all of us have. Now, when you come to the Indian Evidence Act 1872, prior to the amendment of the IT Act in 2008, all the evidences in the court were to be in physical form. Correct. Now, after the 2008 amendment of the IT Act, even electronic records and documents are recognized. Right. So. Some of the words that have been inserted in the Amendment Act are, of course, electronic records, a digital signature, electronic form, and you can look into the precise definition of each of these terms. I'm not getting to that, but these were inserted into the Act to make them, part of the evidentiary importance under the Evidence Act. Okay. Now, if you look at the flow with regards to cyber crime, and with regards to the three major criminal acts, so you have the IPC amended by the IT Act, which penalizes cyber crimes, whether they are theft, forgery, cyber frauds, etc. Then you have the Indian Evidence Act, which has been amended by the IT Act, and digital evidence is now to be collected and proven in court as per the provisions of the Evidence Act. And then you have the CRPC, again amended by the IT Act, where investigation and adjudication of cybercrime is done in accordance with the provisions of the IT Act. So you see, that the IT Act is the main stay of the regulatory framework in India today. The IT Act of 2000, amended in 2008, and it is based on the UNCTAD model, which was drafted with UN, UNCTAD model on e-commerce. So the Indian IT Act drew inspiration from the UNCTAD model on e-commerce, and then of course it was customized to the Indian need and the Indian existing legal jurisprudence, and then we had the IT Act. In fact, we were one of the earliest countries to have a comprehensive provision of law. But 2008, I mean, each of you do know that we have a lot of water has flown under the Mahanadi since 2008. Every week is an era in today's age as far as information technology evolution is concerned. So 13 years is definitely I think a great deal of time. I think it has the amendment to the 2008 Act is long overdue, and I'll briefly touch on it. There are some special acts as well which were amended to provide further framework to the IT Act. The key special acts that were amended were the Indian Bankers Book Evidence Act, the Reserve Bank of India Act, and then the online sale, the NDPS Act, and then the Arms Act. So these are some of the other the minor acts, or if I put it special acts, which also were amended in light of the Information Technology Act of 2000. Now, as I've told, that the IT Act is, at least until now, the primary legislation that we have. Okay, and the main purpose of the IT Act was to provide legal recognition to e-commerce. If you recall, e-commerce started in India at the peak of the IT boom. For those of you who are old enough to remember that, we had a massive IT boom starting in 98, 96, 98. I joined Infosys in 98. Just after my engineering, completing my engineering in 97. And I remember it was the heyday of the IT boom. You had web portals coming up every day. Startups were able to raise millions of dollars. I myself dabbled in an IT startup. Of course, the burst happened in 2000 and the rest is history, as they say. But the IT Act was enacted in 2000 to provide a legal framework to e-commerce. Prior to that, there was no legal framework. So most of the Indian IT startups registered themselves either in the US or in Singapore, right? Because there was no legal framework. And to motivate and encourage the Indian startups to register in India, this IT Act had one key provision to provide legal recognition to e-commerce. The other key purpose of the Act was to facilitate electronic record, filing of electronic record with the government. Okay, and which means that you need not submit physical hard copies of documents. There are a few exceptions, of course. For example, you cannot submit an electronic record of your will, or you cannot even today sign an electronic check. Okay, the Negotiable Instrument Act has not been amended yet. So there are some exceptions, but by and large, today filing of electronic record is accepted by the government. And the other key objective was to penalize cybercrime. Okay, so when you had the IT boom in the late 90s, there was a sudden spurt in cybercrime across the globe, of course, and also in India. So to tackle this increase in cybercrime and then to provide strict punishment, the IT Act was enacted by the Parliament. Now, is it the only framework that's with us? No, it's not. That we do have a few other legal framework or legal structure. The most important would be the Cyber Appellate Tribunal. Okay, so the Cyber Appellate Tribunal has been set up to to address grievances against the order of the adjudicating authority under the IT Act. So under the IT Act, you have something called the AO, adjudicating authority. I really do not have the time to get into the details of the IT Act, but so you have someone called the adjudicating, the authority officer who has quasi-judicial power. So any appeal against the order of the AO goes to the Cyber Appellate Tribunal. Okay. It has the power of a civil court, but it's not bound by the rigid procedures of the CPC, right? But it's rather guided by the principles of natural justice. Okay, and another big advantage of the Cyber Appellate Tribunal is that it regulates its own procedure. Okay, including the place of its own sitting, right? Now, we have only one bench of CAT, Cyber Appellate Tribunal, in the entire country. So the government intends to set up more benches, but it has not happened yet. So for a country of India's size and with the rise in cyber crimes and crimes of digital nature, it's simply unthinkable that we just have one bench of cyber appellate tribunal. We definitely need at least one in every state. Okay. Now, you also have something called the National Cybersecurity Policy, which I think the video spoke about, the National Cybersecurity Policy of 2013, okay, which was drafted to create awareness about cyber security threats and for coordination of the effort of various entities and departments, okay, so that preventive action could be taken by various government and private entities, right? But unfortunately, uh, uh, we have the cybersecurity policy of 2013, and then the Honorable Prime Minister himself mentioned about the National Cybersecurity Strategy of 2020 in his Independence Day speech, and we were all expecting that the strategy paper will be placed before the Parliament. In the budget session, it didn't happen. We were awaiting for the strategy paper to be placed in the monsoon session. It didn't happen, and in fact, I've written a letter now to the Honorable Minister for IT and Electronics, seeking reasons for the delay, because this is so critical, so critical. We are sitting in a situation where you have countries like China investing massive resources on augmenting on the cyber strategy, particularly their AI and drone policy linked strategy. And here we haven't even uh, been successful in coming to a consensus on the cyber security strategy. It has been more than a year since it was due last September, and today we are in November 2021, but still this strategy is nowhere in place. And then, of course, I mentioned about the data protection bill, which is with the select committee, the joint parliamentary committee. Hopefully, it will be placed in the parliament winter session now. Now, the Home Ministry has come out with a dedicated portal for reporting cyber crimes. Right? I think some of you might have used it, cybercrime.gov.in. This is one of the very successful initiative, I must say. Lakhs of complaints have been reported in this portal. Sorry. So the cyber cell, the cybercrime cell of state police database is integrated with this Home Ministry cybercrime reporting portal. So I think this is one instance of how, if we really want to, then I think then we can create a robust structure and framework, right? Now, having created some structure, having created some legal framework, we have a long way to go, right? And I think most of you have already read about, or at least know some of the challenges and deficiencies of the IT Act. See, the cyberspace is almost like a hare and tortoise race between the perpetrators of cybercrime and the government agencies or entities. So it's always a race and trying to outpace each other, right? So I think given that the crime graph has been rising so fast, the existing legal infrastructure is definitely insufficient, and this is why webinars like this are so important, because you have rightly identified that okay, there are some challenges, there are some deficiencies, and how can we come up with the revised frameworks or revised structures to tackle these deficiencies and challenges in the existing framework. There was a reported judgment of the Delhi High Court, Swami Ramdev versus Facebook India Inc. I think it's a 2019 judgment, if I'm not wrong, but Delhi High Court has made many observations. I would urge you to go and have a look at this judgment, with regards to this cyber security. And I think the Honorable Court, Delhi High Court, has made observations about organizational uh, structural deficiencies and technical incompetencies. In fact, it was very harsh, I would say. So, without getting into the details of the judgment, which you can look up online, even our constitutional courts are aware that we do need sweeping changes, not just piecemeal or incremental changes in our existing legal structure and framework to tackle challenges of cybercrime. So one area where we do definitely need to give a lot of thought is the territorial jurisdiction. Territorial jurisdiction, because cybercrime knows no boundary, right? It's unlike a traditional crime where you have a certain territorial jurisdiction which is well defined. Here you could have someone sitting in Maldives committing a fraud in the cyberspace, affecting victims in Odisha, right? So how do you tackle situations like this? Our IT Act is silent on this. Our IT Act is inadequate to handle situations like this, right? So because cyber crimes are borderless, they are geography agnostic, we do need to be cognizant that the new structure or framework should look into this aspect of territoriality, right? And then uh, 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 I did mention about the National Cyber Security Strategy, which is still a draft, which has yet not been made public. Unless we have the National Cyber Security Strategy, I think that coordination, which is so essential, which was rightly understood in 2013 in the National Cyber Security Policy, but because that policy has just remained a policy paper and no strategy has been evolved since then. We are still awaiting that strategy document to be made public, so that the coordination between state government, central government authorities, even private entities can be established. Okay, so the IT Act is severely limiting. It was probably adequate when it was drafted and also when it was amended. But as I said, 13 years is a long time in the cyberspace in the digital age. So I think lot of gaps still remain. For instance, infringement of copyright is not defined in the IT Act. The Act is silent on taxation issues. The Act is not applicable to will or power of attorneys or for negotiable instruments. There's no provision of stamp duty, payment of stamp duty on electronic document. Well, that has been taken care of to some extent, but the other deficiencies and other limitations are still existing. So I think I'll stop with that. I think I've given an introductory understanding of where we are today and some of the challenges that have not been addressed by our existing legal structures and frameworks. And I would be happy to discuss further. In fact, this is an area where I'm also learning myself. It's not that I'm an expert in this sector, or because as you rightly would know, there is hardly any case related to cybercrime in Odisha. So really, having practiced in Odisha High Court, I am yet to deal with any major cyber crime related case or any major case related to IT Act. So I think I would love to learn as much from you all, because you are all more exposed to the new areas, new frontiers of technology and law than we are. So we can have a discussion.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your expertise views with us. The presentation was really enlightening and informative. Each one of us has received a lot of information and inspiration from you. It is our honor to have you among us, sir. Now the podium is open for questions. I would request the participants to put forward their questions in the chat box and we'll take them up one by one.
You can either raise your hands or you can post it in the comment box. So, the first question that has been asked is by Rajiv Vasavani. Does adding cyber awareness program in the new education policy gonna help us in controlling the cyber crime rate?
So is the question, if we create more awareness, then will that help mitigate cyber crimes? Is that the question?
Yes, sir.
Of course, yes. Is it Rajiv, right? So yes, absolutely. I think that is definitely absolutely without any doubt the most important requirement. The level of awareness today in India with regards to cybercrime is just pathetic. Even I hate saying this, but my own brother became a victim of cybercrime a year ago. Right, so that's, and he's a very educated person. So unfortunately our curriculum doesn't orient us for exposure to this kind of information or knowledge. The new education policy which has been implemented and rolled out last year, and in my view one of the finest instances of good public policy, is also silent on this. None of our universities, we do, unless you're a student of law, there's no reason why any universities should teach this. But they should teach. What I'm saying is that universities feel that there's no reason they should teach this, but it's just like first aid. I think every Indian citizen should be given basic exposure to cyber law, which you need not get into the details of technology, you need not get into the details of law, but some basic awareness of cybercrime and cyber law, I think, would go a long way in mitigating cyber crimes. So awareness is definitely the key there.
Sir, another question that has been asked from Ajay Merchant, sir. Ajay Merchant, sir, if you can switch on your audio and ask the same, it will be good. Okay, I'll read it. China, sir, the question is, did China regularly hacks into India's National Power Grid Corporation, and can I believe shut down India's power supply at its whim and fancies? Any comments from the Honorable MP on this aspect, and what is India doing to mitigate such cyber security lapses?
Very good question. In fact, in the interview with Rajya Sabha TV, I did bring it up. I think we are completely and inadequately prepared to tackle cyber threats from China. We still have not understood the threat emanating from China. China is at least 10 years ahead of us, and this is just the beginning. And the gap is only widening. Instead of being able to bridge the gap, we are letting the gap widen. Today, there's a brilliant book. I would recommend everyone to read that book on AI and the Future of Power. Written by Dr. Rajiv Malhotra. I'll WhatsApp it to you and you can share it. So the book is called Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Power. It will blow your mind, as to how far China is ahead of us. Today they are able to shut down our power infrastructure. Tomorrow they will be able to create chaos in Indian roads. They'll be able to hack into our airline network and create massive chaos and confusion. So I think we still definitely the Indian security establishment is aware of it, and of course they are doing their best to withstand and tackle this threat. But the policymakers certainly have very little understanding. I can tell you from first hand experience, most of the members of parliament are either comfortably unaware of it, or wouldn't care less about these issues. I think same goes for the wider public. I think it's thus incumbent on young people like you to create awareness. I think it's so important to spread the word and to make the country aware of the threat that we face from China, right? Particularly China, and of course from Pakistan and North Korea, and there are many rogue nations around. So our biggest threat is possibly going to come from our northern border in the east.
So moving on to the next question, it is asked by Mr. Moksha Parmar. What are your views on Pegasus spyware in terms of cyber aspect?
Pegasus.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what about Pegasus?
So he is asking your views in terms of cyber aspect.
Well, see, I think it's a politically sensitive topic. I think the entire monsoon session got washed out because of this. Supreme Court has constituted a committee. Supreme Court has said that it is violating right to privacy, and as you probably all know, right to privacy has been read as a fundamental right in the famous Aadhaar judgment. So let's see. I think I don't have any particular view on this, except that it's if it is actually true what the opposition parties have alleged, that the government was snooping and spying on hundreds of prominent Indian citizens using this Pegasus software, then it's very concerning, but because it's sub judice, and because my party hasn't taken a stand on this, I would rather not comment on this. I have done some study on Pegasus, but let's wait for the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court has already constituted a committee to study the whole issue and has sought response from the government, it's a very sensitive political topic. So, but I think personally, I feel if what is alleged by the opposition parties is true, then I think this is very, very concerning for Indian democracy.
So the next question is by Ms. Pratima. She asks, how robust is the policy regarding ethical hackers in India?
Do we have a policy on ethical hacking? Yeah, Pratima, are you aware of any policy regarding ethical hacking?
Sir, that's what I wanted to ask, because I never saw it any of the documents. So I was just confused what we have taken steps for ethical hacking, especially, sir, in this case when China is so much robust in the offensive strategy of cybersecurity. How are we prepared for this thing?
No, I don't think there is any policy. I don't, to the best of my knowledge, there's no policy on ethical hacking. That's another, I think that's a very interesting aspect that you have brought up. I think any amendment to the IT Act or any new framework should definitely have some discussion about ethical hacking. To the best of my knowledge, there's none at this point. And whatever ethical hacking or I know that the police establishment and the law enforcement agencies oftentimes employ some consultants or some experts who they call as ethical hackers, but I think that is not part of some policy framework, but purely from from a case to case basis. And I don't think they give them the name of ethical hackers. They might call them consultants or experts, but I don't think there's any policy as of now. But yes, we should definitely have some policy regarding ethical hacking. Yes.
So we'll move on to the next question. This will be the last question due to time constraint. So this is asked by.
Janvi, since it's my fault, I started late, so we can have for another 5-10 minutes. That's okay.
All right, sir. So then the next question is asked by Ms. Namrata. She says there is difference of provision in IPC and IT Act, wherein one recognizes an offense and the other doesn't. How should the interpretation go for such provisions of both these statutes to be harmonious in terms to punishing the wrongdoers?
So, I didn't fully understand the question. So one is open
So she says there's a difference of provision in IPC and the IT Act,
Okay.
wherein one of those recognizes an offense and the other doesn't. And how should the interpretation go for such provisions of both these statutes to be harmonious in terms to punishing the wrongdoers?
One recognizes an offense, the other
I think,
doesn't.
sir, she wants to talk about the quantum of punishment in both the acts. The quantum of punishment that has been presented in both the acts, like if cyber crime defamation has a different in IPC, then in IT Act it may have a different punishment in that way, in that sense. She wants to.
Well, see, cybercrime has not been defined in any statute in India, right? And there's nothing called cyber defamation. IT Act has no section which talks of defamation. So there is already a harmonious construction between the IT Act and the IPC. So the penal code defines the crime, right? And then of course there are some crimes which are specific to or which are specifically relevant in the digital space, right? So this is why you need an IT Act to define that specificity or bring that specificity, and then of course you have to apply the IPC or CRPC or Evidence Act as per the crime. So I really haven't understood the question properly. It's my, I think, lack of understanding of the question, but I think already there is a harmonious relationship between the two provisions or the two legislations.
We have another questions. We can go forward. What are the question is from Anil Sethe. What are your views on the Personal Data Protection Bill 2019? And regarding the delay in passing the bill, do you think that bit of habeas data could be made available in India?
Which data?
Habeas data, sir. Habeas.
It's habeas corpus. There's some kind
habeas
of
corpus. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, actually, sorry, I'm not in my office. I'm actually in a separate place. So they have poor internet connectivity here, and so I have to manage with that. I think, see, as I've said, the data, the Joint Parliamentary Committee, the JPC on Data Protection and Privacy, has already met umpteen number of times over the last 1.5 years. They have come up with a voluminous report. That report is not yet public. First, they will place it in the floor of the House, in both the houses of the Parliament. We are expecting that in the upcoming winter session of Parliament. I think let's wait for the data protection bill. Let's see, because as of now it's it's a private document. So yes, there was a very wide consultation. They did invite inputs and consultations from across the spectrum. So we do know what kind of issues were discussed, but finally what has been the observation of the committee and what has been the view of the committee and the final report we haven't seen yet. So I think let's wait for the bill. It's another few weeks from now where we'll see the bill.
Thank you, sir, for answering all these questions. We really appreciate the time you took for this webinar. I would like to inform everyone that the second session of this webinar is cancelled due to immediate commitments. Mr. Satyajit Mohanty couldn't make it for the webinar. So we are at the end of the webinar now. We'll move on to the vote of thanks by Mr. Ayush Verma.
Thank you, Chavi.
So sorry, before we continue, so do you have separate papers on cyber law? Are you taught cyber law?
Yes, sir. We do have that in our 7th semester.
Please, sir. Sir, I'm Tulishri Pradhan, faculty. Sir, actually, we have one general paper in 7th semester, and at the same time, we have one honors paper as cyber crime for the criminal law honors students. So we are managing with these two papers, and along with that, this IT Act is something we also cover under the Indian Penal Code. And related to this, like you mentioned about defamation, sedition, obscenity. So these things we cover under media law and also under the Constitution.
Thank you.
All right, sir. So once again, good evening all. Given the opportunity for the vote of thanks, I, Ayush Verma, Secretary Convener at Center for Study and Research on Legislative Drafting, acknowledge the faith and positivity that we have always imbibed from our beloved founder, Sir Dr. Achyuta Samanta. My sincere thanks to Professor Dr. Rishikesh Mohanty, Sir, Vice Chancellor, KIIT, Professor Dr. Shashmita Samanta, Ma'am, Pro Vice Chancellor of KIIT, Professor Gyanaranjan Mohanty, Sir, Registrar, KIIT, all in absentia, for trusting us and motivating as always. Special mention to our respected Professor Dr. Bhavani Prasad Panda, Sir, Director, School of Law, KIIT, for allowing us to plan this event and being supportive and sharing his thoughts of wisdom to make everyone and every event to be a success. Well, now, coming to our esteemed speaker, Sir, I have had my prior association with respected Sujit Sir on many occasions. He was the chief guest at the inaugural KIIT National Youth Parliament competition back in 2019. And I have also done my legal training under Sir. One thing that I surely would like to point in here that how dynamic he is in every work that he does. In regards to today's webinar, Sir, thank you so much for taking out time from your busiest of the schedules for KIIT and Center for Study and Research on Legislative Drafting. It will be always grateful for all of us and to you, and we would love to have you on board again in future with some different and pertinent themes, which are certainly important for nation building. Moving ahead, I would like to thank Mr. Sunil Maji Sir and Mr. Swadesh Sir from Kalinga Kusum in extending their support for this national webinar. Post this, my humble recognition to Dr. Tulishri Pradhan Ma'am, Assistant Professor and Faculty Coordinator of CSRLD School of Law, KIIT. Ms. Shreshi Bhattacharya Ma'am, Assistant Professor and Co-Faculty Coordinator, CSRLD School of Law, KIIT. Cheers to my team under the leadership of Mr. Sardat Singh, Co-Convener CSRLD from 4th year, followed by Ms. Charvi, the moderator of the session. Our rapporteurs for the eve, Ms. Anushmita and Ms. Ishita Paul, and all other members involved in the smooth conduct of the national webinar. To add on, my heartiest regards to Mr. Santosh Maji Sir and team for their technical support. The most important of all, and gentle participants for being patient listeners, we wish to collaborate with all of you again in our future ventures. Certificates of participation shall be sent by mail in a span of 7 to 8 working days. Till then, it's a bye from me and my institution, and I wish you all the best and the safest of Diwali. Let's be safe and happy. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the KIIT fraternity.
Thank you, Ayush. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Always a pleasure interacting with young minds.
Absolutely, sir.
So would love to interact more in the coming days.
Absolutely.
Wish everyone a very happy Diwali. Okay,
thank you,
stay
sir.
safe.
And this winter session, I'll be there in Delhi, sir. Hope to meet you.
When?
In the winter session of the Parliament.
Oh, please come, please come. Please
Absolutely,
come.
sir.
Yeah, you should all come and witness at least one Parliament session.
Absolutely. Sure, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir.
Not that we do much.
No, it's not that, sir.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Bye, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
So I believe we are done. So good job. And to all the participants, thank you for being so patient listeners, and your certificates will be sent via mail in due course of time. And once again, a very happy Diwali to everyone, and loads of wishes and good luck. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. We can end the meeting now. Thank you so much.
Santosh sir, please end the meeting.
Aparna, please talk to Santosh sir and please ask him to close the meeting.
Ayushbhai, I'm taking my leave. Some urgent work as well.
Yes, Sarthak. All right. We all can leave. Thank you so much. We can leave now. Aparna, meanwhile, you can just talk to sir and get this meeting over. All right.
Sir, phone is coming busy. I will talk to you.
All right.